I was not expecting that at all. Because whenever this project was announced, the name alone sounds like a straight-to-video kind of release. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. And Val Kilmer is associated with many straight-to-video releases nowadays.
Right, right. So we watched this, and what are your thoughts?
This movie is kind of hard to classify, really, because it's a action thriller, but it's almost, to me, is it an action thriller? Would you say it's an action thriller?
I would say a little bit of a thriller, not a lot of action.
But the weird thing is that it almost ends up playing out like a comedy, like a dark comedy.
Oh, absolutely.
The direction is very good. Nicolas Cage is great in it.
Yeah.
And what's really weird is it kind of, as much as I complain about Nicolas Cage, and he does some terrible, terrible films.
Agreed.
Some of the worst films ever made. He's also made this film, which is very good, and Adaptation, which is also very good. And in a way, they kind of remind me of each other. Because there comes a point in Bad Lieutenant when it changes how it's going so quick, like flip-flops.
Yeah.
So quick, and it gives this whole different feel.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before any of that even, this is the basic rundown. Bad Lieutenant, as you can imagine, Nicolas Cage plays a lieutenant in New Orleans.
He's bad.
He is bad. He has got an injury that forced him to take Vicodin, and then he seemed to progress beyond that to cocaine and heroin. He is not what you would call an especially good cop. He used a lot of unusual methods to get information and shakes down people for drugs.
And then uses them.
Right. He's stealing from the police departments more drugs that he gives to his prostitute girl, played by Eva Mendes. So he's not necessarily a lovable character. That being said, I thought this was one of the funniest movies I'd ever seen.
Right.
I loved it almost beginning to end. I thought it was fantastic. But it doesn't play out like a straight narrative, which also kind of reminded me of Adaptation. But it feels like a series of scenes that on their own are fantastic. Like, every scene kind of begins and ends. Like, everything's developed within that scene. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, you'll meet a group of people, everything will happen, and then people will leave. Boom. That's the end of that scene. But all of these scenes come together, and this movie truly is the sum of its parts. He'll go through weird, trippy moments where he'll walk into a stakeout, and there'll be a bunch of cops, and he's high on cocaine, and he's looking over, and there's 2 iguanas on the table. He's like, "What's with these iguanas?" And everyone's like, "What iguanas?" And he's like, "This iguana," he's poking him. And then it chooses to cut to the iguanas for a solid minute and a half and play some trippy 70s music while you're looking at extreme close-ups of an iguana's eye.
Correct. But you can still see Val Kilmer and Nicolas Cage in the background.
Yes.
Val Kilmer keeping his eye on the stakeout, and Nicolas Cage just cheesing at the 2 iguanas.
Right. And his facial expressions in this movie are fantastic.
Yes, they are.
I mean, he puts crazy top priority. I mean, it turns it up all the way to 11, and he pulls it off. Another person, it would come off as too hammy, but because it's Nicolas Cage, you feel like, oh, it's Nicolas Cage. This is perfectly acceptable.
Right. It was very well cast.
Yeah.
I mean, who would have thought it? Like, oh, Nicolas Cage, that's the guy I need. That's who I need. The guy who was in The Wicker Man and Weatherman and all these other crap films.
Right. No, but it was Werner Herzog directed.
Yeah. And I have never seen any of his other films, I don't believe.
I don't think you have either, although he is in The Grand.
Is he?
You remember he's the crazy German poker player who constantly wants to eat animals?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is very strange.
I've always wanted to see Grizzly Man.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
never really got around to it.
Right.
Other than that, it looks like almost all of his films are foreign films.
Yeah. But, I mean, He did a great job. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
fantastically shot.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. And that's another bad thing about us watching that first.
Yeah.
And then going to The Descent, which was almost a made-for-TV type direction.
Right.
As a Werner Herzog is, I mean, he has an eye for it, you know.
Yeah.
Even like the colors in the film.
Oh, yeah. And it's you know, the good thing about using New Orleans is it is one of the rare places in this country that doesn't feel like this country. Like when you see it in film, it's, you know, there's still kind of a lot of that, you know, some religious practices down there that are very foreign to us. And unfortunately, there's so many parts of New Orleans that are so
impoverished.
Yeah, that it comes off very third worldish. And this movie uses a lot of that
Right.
as well. But yeah, I would say if you come across and you have any desire, if you like Nicolas Cage, if you like crime movies, if you like dark comedies, I can recommend it on any of those
More
fronts.
dark comedies than anything, I think. I think if you just like crime thrillers, you may not really get the full effect.
Yeah.
Because like I said, once it changes...
Yeah, once it changes gears like that, it does. It feels like an entirely separate film. And you almost kind of expect him to be in some drug-induced state.
Right.
And that he has imagined all
Or
of this.
at least waking up from a dream.
Right, but none of that seems to play out. And, you know, in a lot of films, I wouldn't accept it. You wouldn't accept it in almost any movie.
You're correct, because I'd be like, this is maybe a minor spoiler here, but you might think, oh, this is exactly the way I'd expect this film to play out.
Yeah.
But not really, because it's so over the top.
Yeah.
The way they present it.
Right, right.
The way it is presented is just ridiculous.
Yeah, and yet because of the nature of the film and what we've seen before, it doesn't break the style of the film. It falls in line with the style of the movie. So,
I agree.
yeah, I can absolutely recommend Bad Lieutenant.
I agree. Anybody should give it a shot.
Yeah, because, like I said, you don't need to have seen the original, to our knowledge, and you won't really be disappointed. I can't imagine too many people who would watch it and be like, I hated this movie for one reason or another. So.
Well, so I could see some people thinking maybe it is a little too odd, a little peculiar.
Yeah. So, but anyway.
But we would both definitely highly recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything coming out soon that you wanna go see?
You know, I don't know. What's coming up around the corner here?
Well, for me,
I don't have that up right now.
for me, I do plan on going to watch Prince of Persia.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I like the video game. I like that kind of movie.
Yeah.
As long, you know, right now it's floating right around fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, I'm a little bit concerned just from the look of the trailers that it'd be very much like The Mummy, which I do not really care for.
yeah, I can see that.
I believe earlier today you said you're really excited about Sex and the City 2, right?
I think what you're mistaking is when I said I was happy that all of the reviews for Sex and the City are absolutely terrible.
Oh.